Asterisk, she texted me on a Wednesday afternoon. Nothing special about that day. No fight, no tension, no warning. Just a quiet afternoon, the kind where life feels on autopilot. My phone buzzed. Her name lit up, Emily. And then, just one short message. I need some time. Please don't contact me. Just respect that. No greeting. No explanation. No apology. It wasn't a conversation. It was an announcement. 2 years together, and everything ended in 12 words. It didn't even sound emotional, just procedural. I read it 3 times, not because I didn't understand it, but because I couldn't believe it came from her. Emily wasn't the cold type. She was the talk through everything type. The let's make sure we both understand each other kind of person. Or at least, that's who she used to be. Now, she had drawn a line, simple, clean, final. I didn't reply, didn't call, didn't ask why. She wanted silence, so I gave her silence. And in that quiet, one thought hit me harder than the message itself. When someone says they need time to find themselves, it usually means they've already found someone else. I wasn't angry. Not yet, just. Still, I set the phone down, watched the coffee on my desk go cold, and let the room sink into that heavy kind of quiet that makes every sound feel too loud. The hum of the fridge, the tick of the clock, even my own breathing. That's the kind of silence that feels like truth. Emily and I met in grad school. She was sharp, organized, charming, always in control. The kind of woman who made chaos look manageable. I liked that about her. Maybe too much. She once told me, I hate losing control. People who lose it first, lose twice. Back then, I thought it was discipline. Now, I realize it was detachment. Her text fit her perfectly. Emotionless efficiency. I sat there and thought about how something can end without ending. There was no fight, no closure, no noise. Just a quiet fracture that changed everything. That night, I didn't drink, didn't cry, didn't message her. I just went through the motions, dinner, dishes, bed, but the apartment felt hollow. The kind of hollow that isn't about space, but about absence. Her mug was still in the sink, her jacket still hanging by the door. It's strange how the smallest things can feel like echoes. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe she really was overwhelmed. Maybe she needed clarity. Maybe this was temporary. But in the back of my mind, a small, steady voice kept repeating, this isn't about time. It's about distance. The next morning, I woke up early, habit, made coffee, scrolled through my phone. Nothing from her. No updates. Just silence, long and uninterrupted, for a while. I thought about reaching out, breaking the no-contact rule she created. But then I stopped myself. Because when someone creates distance, they expect you to chase. And if you don't, that silence becomes their problem to solve, not yours. So I didn't chase. I waited. Days passed. The world kept moving. But under that stillness, something inside me started shifting to, not anger, not sadness, just awareness something was off. And I knew, sooner or later, I was going to find out exactly what it was. Not from her, but from someone who didn't realize they were about to tell me everything. The silence was almost polite at first, the kind that feels temporary, like holding your breath underwater. The first few days passed easily enough. I went to work, answered emails, scrolled through news, pretended to be fine. Nobody at the office knew anything. I didn't tell my friends. I didn't even tell my brother. When people asked how Emily was, I just said, "She's busy." It was simpler that way. By the end of the first week, the silence started to stretch. It wasn't loud, but it had weight. I'd wake up, check my phone without thinking, find nothing, and then toss it back on the nightstand like it didn't matter. The truth is, it did. Every quiet hour felt like a statement, one that kept repeating, "She's not coming back the same way she left." I told myself not to spiral. I'd been in relationships before. Breaks happen. People need space. But the problem was, Emily never did anything halfway. She didn't take space. She took control. She didn't say, "Let's talk later." She said no contact. That wasn't distance. That was erasure. Still, I respected it. Maybe that was my mistake. On day 10, I stopped counting. I figured if she really needed time, she'd take it. I tried to focus on work, on the small stuff, laundry, dishes, cleaning up the apartment. It's strange how routines become survival mechanisms. I started eating better, running again, organizing my desk. There was something therapeutic about the quiet, at least for a while, until the moment it broke. It was a Thursday afternoon. I was on my lunch break, sitting in my car, scrolling absent-mindedly through Facebook when I saw it, a notification that said, "Emily's mum tagged Emily in 3 new photos." My thumb hovered over the screen for a second. I almost ignored it. Almost, but curiosity has a way of disguising itself as closure. So, I clicked. The first photo loaded, and I swear my chest tightened before my brain even caught up. Emily was smiling, that same half-smile I'd seen 1,000 times. Sunglasses, tan lines, beach behind her, a drink in hand. Her arm wrapped around a guy I didn't recognize. The caption read, "So happy. Emily met someone who makes her smile again." Her mum wrote that. Her mum. For a second, I thought maybe I was misreading it. Maybe it was old. Maybe it was a cousin. Maybe it was innocent. But the timestamp said 2 hours ago, and the guy had his hand on her waist like someone who knew exactly where his place was. It wasn't innocent. My stomach went cold, not in a dramatic way. More like my body finally understood something my mind had refused to process. So, I just sat there, phone in hand, engine running, music still playing faintly in the background, some song I'd heard 1,000 times but couldn't remember later. I didn't text her. I didn't call. I didn't comment. I didn't even screenshot it yet. I just stared at that photo, letting the silence fill the car again. But this time, it wasn't empty. It was final. A minute later, another thought crept in. Her mum had tagged her publicly. That meant Emily saw it too. She could have untagged herself, asked her mum to take it down, hidden it, but she didn't. That wasn't an accident. That was exposure disguised as coincidence. It's funny how betrayal doesn't always explode. Sometimes it just leaks. Slowly, predictably. By the time I got home that evening, I had screenshotted everything. Captions, timestamps, comments. Old habit. I wasn't planning to use them. I just wanted to keep a record of how people show you who they really are when they think you're not watching. That night, I didn't drink, didn't cry. I just sat in the dark, phone face down on the table, the quiet heavier than before. I realized something that night. Silence isn't always peace. Sometimes it's camouflage. Emily's silence had purpose. It wasn't confusion or burnout. It was preparation. She didn't want space to find herself. She wanted space to transition quietly, cleanly, without the mess of confrontation. And I had made it easy for her. So, I decided to return the favor. If she wanted distance, I'd give it to her. Real distance. No text, no call, no reaction. Just quiet. The kind that doesn't seek closure. The kind that waits for the truth to reveal itself naturally. It didn't take long. A day later, I got a message from her mum. "Hey, sweetheart. I hope you're not upset about those pictures. Emily didn't want you to find out like this." Find out what? That she was already with someone else. That our relationship had ended weeks before she told me. I didn't reply. Not yet. I just let that message sit there, like another piece of evidence. I wasn't angry, not in the loud, emotional way. Just calm, steady, methodical. When people lie, the best thing you can do is let them keep talking. They always tell on themselves, eventually so. I waited, and when the next message came, not from her mum, but from Emily herself, I already knew exactly what it would sound like. 3 days after her mum messaged me, I still hadn't replied. I didn't text, didn't ask questions, didn't take the bait. I knew how this worked. The moment I reacted, I'd become the angry ex, the overdramatic one, so I did nothing. Sometimes, silence is the only move that keeps you in control. Then it came a message from Emily herself. "I was going to tell you. Please don't make this harder than it already is." That was it. No apology, no explanation, no trace of guilt. Just something sterile, transactional, like she was closing a customer service ticket, not a 2-year relationship. I stared at it for a while, long enough for the anger to burn out before it ever caught fire. Then I typed one short reply, "You already did," and I put my phone face down on the table. That night her mom called. She sounded emotional, teary, apologetic, the way people sound when they know a line's been crossed but aren't sure by whom. I listened quietly. She told me Emily didn't mean to hurt me, that she was confused, that she needed clarity. I said nothing, except a polite "I understand." And then, in between all those words, she slipped just a small sentence that told me everything. She said you were a little controlling. That's why she felt smothered. Controlling. That word sat in my chest like a small, cold stone. I wanted to laugh. Me, the guy who respected every boundary, who gave her space even when it hurt, who said nothing when she asked for silence. Now I was the controlling one. That's when I realized Emily was rewriting the story. She wasn't just moving on, she was editing the narrative. In her version, I wasn't the guy who gave her time. I was the reason she needed it. She wasn't the one who lied. She was the one who escaped. And in her mind, that made everything easier to justify. I hung up politely, thanked her mum, and sat there in the dark for a long time. The apartment felt different that night. Smaller, maybe, but cleaner somehow. Like the truth had stripped away whatever illusions were left. I unlocked my phone again, scrolled back to the photos her mum had posted. I looked at them carefully this time. Emily, laughing under the sun, cocktail in hand. That same necklace around her neck, the one I'd given her for her birthday last year. The one she once said she'd never take off. Funny how people keep the symbols of love even when the love's already gone. I zoomed in, studied her expression. She wasn't guilty. She wasn't nervous. She looked free, the kind of free that comes. When you believe you've gotten away with something, the guy next to her didn't matter. Could have been a co-worker, could have been someone she met months ago. What mattered was how easily she let it happen, how she allowed herself to be tagged, public, visible. That wasn't carelessness. That was intent. She wanted to be seen. People only do that when they're sure you won't react. And she was right, I wouldn't. I didn't text her, didn't make a scene, didn't post anything cryptic online. I didn't need revenge or sympathy. I didn't need to win. I just needed to remember. Because sometimes, remembering is the most powerful form of self-defense. I remembered every detail, every word, every look, every moment she'd gone quiet before the silence became permanent. I saved the screenshots, not for proof, not to show anyone, but to remind myself what betrayal really looks like when it's dressed up as emotional maturity. She wanted distance. I gave her the whole horizon. She wanted quiet. I gave her the kind that echoes. And in that echo, she started to unravel herself. Because here's the thing about silence. It doesn't just protect you. It exposes them, and right on schedule, the world started catching up. A mutual friend texted me a few days later. "Hey man, I don't know if you've heard, but Emily's seeing that guy from the beach. I just thought you should know." I looked at the message, smiled a little, and set the phone down. Not out of sadness, out of certainty, because by then I didn't need confirmation. I already had the truth, and sometimes the truth doesn't hit you like a punch. Sometimes it just settles, quiet, undeniable, and cold as glass. I wasn't angry. Not anymore. Anger means you still care. And I didn't. What replaced it wasn't sadness or regret. It was clarity, sharp, cold, and quiet. The kind of clarity that only comes when the noise finally stops, and you can see the truth without emotion getting in the way. So I did what she asked for. No calls, no texts, no chasing. She wanted space. I gave her space, real space. Wide, clean, absolute silence. And in that silence, people start showing who they really are. They think they're in control of the story, but when you stop reacting, their performance suddenly looks obvious. Emily kept posting pictures of sunsets, beach walks, healthy breakfasts, and those predictable quotes about finding peace and loving yourself first. I didn't look for them, but social media doesn't care what you want. It shows you exactly what you tried to avoid. One night, around 11:30, her face appeared on my feed again. She was at a restaurant, that warm golden lighting, the same black dress she wore on our anniversary, and next to her, the same guy from the beach photo, not too close, not too obvious, but close enough for anyone who's ever been in love to notice the shift, the comfort, the new rhythm. I didn't feel angry, just distant, detached. It was like watching a movie where you already know the ending, so the surprises don't land anymore. I saw it all coming. I just didn't want to believe it. People always say time heals everything, but that's not true. Time doesn't heal, it reveals. Each day that passed, things got clearer. She hadn't been confused or lost. She'd been preparing, rehearsing her exit quietly, while I was still trying to understand the script. And somehow, that realization made it easier to breathe. Because when you know it wasn't your fault, you stop needing closure. One night, I opened our old photos. The road trip, the rain, her leaning on my shoulder, saying, "I trust you." I looked at them the same way you look at old receipts. Proof something existed once, but no longer matters now. I didn't delete them. I didn't hide them either. I just let them sit there, like small pieces of evidence from a life that's already closed its case. She used to tell me, "You're too calm. I can never tell what you're feeling." Now I get it. People like her crave reactions. They feed off emotional chaos. When you don't give it to them, they lose control. And nothing frustrates a manipulator more than a man who refuses to play along. Not long after, a mutual friend reached out. "Hey, I don't know if you've heard," he said, "but Emily's been telling people you were controlling. That's why she left." I laughed, not out of disbelief, just amusement. I didn't explain. I didn't defend myself, because when you argue, you validate the lie. When you stay silent, it dies on its own, and it did. A few weeks later, nobody cared anymore. People moved on. She kept living her new life, the beach, the brunches, the self-love posts, and me. I kept mine quietly, calmly, without needing to prove anything. No anger, just memory. No hate, just understanding. People think silence means defeat. But silence is power. It's how you win without ever raising your voice. Because the truth is, nothing haunts a guilty person more than seeing you completely fine, and me. I was fine, actually, better than fine. I was finally free. At some point, I realized silence wasn't just a reaction. It was a plan, a strategy, a way of saying everything without having to say a word. I started changing small things, not to prove anything, but to take control again of myself, of my focus, of what was left. I deleted social media from my phone, not because I couldn't handle seeing her, but because I didn't want her anywhere near my attention. I started running again, cooking for myself, fixing the apartment, reading old books. Every quiet routine became proof that I didn't need chaos to feel alive. People say indifference is the most dangerous weapon. I think they're right. You don't have to yell or argue. You just have to live well enough that your existence becomes the reminder they didn't break you. That's the kind of silence that makes people uncomfortable. And then, one morning, I got a message from her. "I saw you're doing well. I'm glad." I stared at it for a second, then laughed under my breath. She didn't send that because she was glad. She sent it because she wanted to see if she still mattered. But she didn't. Not anymore. I didn't reply. I just locked my phone and went back to making coffee. That was the moment I realized she had lost control. The silence wasn't mine anymore. It was hers. I stayed quiet, but I didn't disappear. I let time do the work. I didn't have to defend myself because people started figuring it out on their own. A mutual friend texted me one day, "Hey, I don't think what Emily said about you was true. Everyone can tell you weren't controlling." I just typed one word, "Thanks." That's all it took. No explanations, no drama. Because when you stop talking, people start listening differently. Weeks passed, and the noise around her faded. She started showing up again in small ways, liking old posts, commenting under mutual friends, photos, little digital ghosts, trying to see if I'd react. I didn't, not out of spite, just because I genuinely didn't care anymore. That's when I understood something important. Winning isn't about revenge or making them regret it. Winning is realizing they no longer have the power to hurt you. That was my plan all along. Silence. Not avoidance, not surrender, just distance. Calm, deliberate distance. It wasn't emptiness anymore. It was a boundary. A clear, quiet message that said, "I understand now. and I've moved on. She once told me I was too calm, that she could never read me. Maybe she was right, because the one thing she never saw coming was that I could walk away completely, quietly, and without a single look back. Life had settled into something simple again. Work, gym, food, sleep. No late night overthinking, no phone checking before bed, no wondering what she was doing. It's strange how quiet time feels once you stop waiting for someone to come back. Then one night, right before I went to sleep, my phone buzzed. A name I hadn't seen in months. Her name. Can we talk for a minute? I stared at the screen, didn't answer. Not because I was angry, but because I needed to make sure there was nothing left inside me. I set the phone down, brushed my teeth, and by the time I came back, there was another message. I'm sorry, I was wrong. A while ago, those words might have meant something. But now, they didn't. They arrived too late, like an apology to someone who's already packed up and moved out. She said the other guy wasn't what she thought, that things didn't work out, that she just wanted to talk. Every word read like a recycled script, the kind people use when regret hits harder than pride. But what she didn't realize was that I wasn't waiting to be chosen anymore. I replied eventually, just one line, I'm good, don't worry about me. Her response came fast. I didn't know you could be this cold. I wasn't cold, I was just done. There's a difference. We talked briefly, or rather she talked, and I listened. She told me about her mistakes, her loneliness, her sudden realizations about what we had. I stayed quiet, steady. When I did speak, I kept my voice calm. You didn't lose me, Emily. You traded me for an experience, and now you're living with the result. She didn't know what to say after that. For the first time, she was the one who went silent. Then came the question I knew was coming. Do you still love me? I took a breath and told her the truth. I did, completely. But that part of me doesn't live here anymore. She didn't reply after that. The chat bubble stopped moving. A few seconds later, she went offline. No goodbye, no argument, no drama, just silence. This time from her side, I stared at the screen, felt nothing but peace. Somewhere along the way, the roles had reversed. She was the one reaching out. I was the one at peace. People think closure is a conversation. It's not. Closure happens quietly when the person who hurt you no longer has access to your emotions. That night, I stepped outside. The city was still, the air cold and clean. I looked up, smiled, not because I'd won, but because I finally understood something. I was never waiting for her to come back. I was waiting to be the kind of man who didn't need her to, and now I was. After that last conversation, she disappeared. No messages, no calls. No, just checking in. Just silence, the kind that used to hurt, but now felt right. I didn't delete her number. Didn't erase the photos. Didn't block her. Not because I wanted her back, but because I didn't need to erase her to move on. The past wasn't an open wound anymore. It was just a scar. And scars don't hurt, they remind you of what you've survived. Life slowed down in the best way. Mornings were soft again, sunlight across the floor, quiet coffee, breathing without thinking of anyone else. I started running, fixing small things, reading again. Little habits that reminded me I belonged to myself. Sometimes she crossed my mind, not the pain, just fragments. Her laugh, her voice, the way she leaned on my shoulder at red lights. But even those memories began to fade, turning light like background noise from a story that had already ended. People mentioned her now and then. She's been quiet lately. I think she's doing okay. I'd nod, maybe smile, not the smile that hides pain, but the one that says, I'm really fine, and I was. One night, sitting on my porch with a glass of whiskey, I felt something unexpected gratitude. Not for her, but for the lesson. She wasn't a mistake. She was a mirror showing me the kind of love I could give, and the kind of peace I'd been too afraid to protect. Someone once asked, if she came back, would you forgive her? I said, I already did. Not because she deserved it, but because I deserved to stop carrying it. Forgiveness, I realized, isn't about letting someone back in. It's about letting yourself out. A few weeks later, I went for a drive. No destination, just the road. It was the same highway we used to take to the lake, back when things were simple. Everything looked the same. But I wasn't. The man who once drove that road was lost. The man behind the wheel now, he wasn't chasing anything anymore. I pulled over, shut off the engine, and sat in silence as the sky turned gold, then pink, then dark. And for the first time, I didn't wish she was there. I didn't wish for closure or one last conversation. I just wanted this, the stillness. Peace, I realized, doesn't come from fixing what's broken. It comes from accepting that some things were never meant to be fixed. I used to think love meant holding on. Now I know sometimes love means letting go with grace. She taught me that. And for that, I'll always be thankful. As the last bit of sunlight disappeared, something inside me finally settled. Not joy, not sadness, just peace. The kind that doesn't need anyone else to exist. I smiled, started the car, and drove home. No music, no destination, just the hum of the road, steady and calm. And somewhere between the miles, I realized I wasn't driving away from her anymore. I was driving toward myself. That was the real ending. Not the goodbye, not the silence, but the return, the one where I finally came back home. To me,